Chapter 1, Understanding the Intersection of Faith and Sexuality. Understanding the intersection of faith and sexuality is an important and complex topic, especially in the context of the LGBTQ+ community. Throughout history, religious beliefs and practices have often been used to justify discrimination against and persecution of individuals who identify as LGBTQ+. However, as society progresses and attitudes shift, there has been a growing movement towards greater acceptance and inclusion of LGBTQ+ individuals within religious communities around the world. In this chapter, we will explore the history of the Church's treatment of LGBTQ+ individuals, examine current attitudes and debates, and consider the implications for future progress. What does the Bible say about homosexuality? The Bible is often cited in discussions about homosexuality, and there are several passages that are commonly interpreted as condemning same-sex relationships. For example, Leviticus 18 verse 22 states, "You shall not lie with a male as with a woman, it is an abomination." In a similar vein, 1 Corinthians 6 verses 9 to 10 cites homosexual offenders among those who will not inherit the kingdom of God. However, there are also alternative interpretations of these passages that argue for greater acceptance of LGBTQ+ individuals. For example, some scholars argue that the biblical authors were not addressing loving, consensual relationships between two individuals of the same sex but rather condemning other forms of sexual behavior such as prostitution or rape. Others point to the cultural and historical context of the Bible and argue that these passages are not relevant to contemporary discussions about homosexuality. In addition to these alternative interpretations, there are also arguments that draw on biblical themes of love, justice, and inclusion to advocate for the acceptance of LGBTQ+ individuals. For example, some argue that Jesus' teachings of compassion and acceptance should be applied to all individuals, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. The fervent belief of some Christians is that homosexuals were not created that way. They understand that, if God really did create gay people that way, to reject them would be to reject God's creative work, which makes this important. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who might be misled or not understand the Bible because of omitted words or culturally specific meanings. This is a big problem because, as we go further, we discover that Jesus has left us in the ancient dust, as he declares in Matthew 19 verses 4 to 5, where he responds to a question of whether divorce is permitted. Jesus answered, "Have you not read that the one who made them at the beginning made them male and female and said, 'For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh'? Consequently, what God has joined together, let no one separate." Because heterosexuality was perceived to be the norm in creation before analysis and science revealed otherwise in the animal kingdom of God, where homosexual pairings are more common, this has been going on in the animal kingdom for millions of years. Some Christians interpret these words to mean that the only legitimate way for people to form romantic relationships is through marriage between heterosexuals. As a matter of fact, Jesus' disciples were extremely troubled by his strict advice regarding divorce as the conversation went on. The disciples suggested that if divorce is difficult, a man should avoid getting married. Jesus responds, "Not everyone can accept this word, but only those to whom it has been given. For there are eunuchs who have been so from birth, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by others, and there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Let anyone accept this who can." Matthew 19 verses 11 to 12. In this passage, Jesus identifies three groups of men who shouldn't get married. If we follow his categories in reverse order, the first group consists of people who have become eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven, or people who forego marriage in order to better serve God. Second, he makes reference to people who have been made eunuchs by others, presumably meaning castrated men. Jesus does, however, mention a third group of people, eunuchs who were born that way. Although it would be incredibly uncommon, some might contend that Jesus was referring to males born without testicles. This interpretation also fails to take into account the way the phrase born eunuchs was used in earlier works of literature. The term natural or born eunuchs was not used to describe missing testicles in the ancient world, including in ancient Jewish culture, as depicted in the Talmud. Instead, like contemporary gay men, they were linked to stereotypically effeminate traits and behaviors. As we consider the biblical perspective on homosexuality, it is important to approach these passages with an open and critical mind and to consider the diverse interpretations and arguments that exist. Ultimately, Our understanding of these passages will shape how we view and treat LGBTQ+ individuals within our communities. Important note, there are many animal species that have been observed engaging in same-sex behavior, including bonobos. These primates engage in a variety of sexual behaviors, including same-sex activities. Dolphins. Male dolphins have been observed engaging in sexual activities with other males, sometimes forming long-term partnerships. Penguins. Some species of penguins form same-sex pairs and even raise chicks together. Lions. Male lions have been seen engaging in same-sex sexual behavior, which could help the pride's social ties grow stronger. Sheep. Male sheep, or rams, have been observed engaging in same-sex sexual behavior, sometimes as a way to establish dominance. These are just a few examples, but same-sex behavior has been observed in a wide range of animal species, including birds, insects, fish, and more. It's important to note that while these behaviors may be considered homosexual from a human perspective, animals do not have the same social and cultural attitudes towards sexuality as humans do.